Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? It's your man, Big B, Brien Hanley, along with Tim Fitzgerald. Welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. We appreciate everybody being in here. We got a good show for you guys today, man. We're talking about brands, Big 12 brands, and whether football, basketball, obviously football runs the train, but the Big 12, really good basketball schools. But after the first year, Fitz, of the new Big 12, I don't think anything got settled. I know people were talking about, look, somebody's got to take the lead, and who we thought could possibly take the lead did not do it. And is that going to continue this year? Is it going to be an ever-changing cycle? We'll discuss all of that and more, and also discuss if that's a good thing for the Big 12, that it is a revolving door. So, but before we do anything, Fitz, remember, everybody, like, follow, subscribe, and continue to hit in those comment sections like you guys always do. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you know exactly when Big 12 Insiders content comes out. Before I do anything other than that, Fitz, haven't talked to you in a while. How are you doing?
Doing okay. Yesterday I had a little detour, but we're good. We're back on track today.
Good. So, this brand stuff has really just become a thing over, look, let's just say the last decade. I don't know if it's actually been 10 years that we've been talking about it, or that it's been important, should I say. But let's just give it a decade. And the Big 12 had some brands. I don't need to go into who those teams are. They're no longer here, so I don't even want to talk to them or bring them up or give them the credence. Having said that, with the new conference, the Big 12 needs a new leader, per se. Now, I was on record, and I think you were as well, talking about the Big 12. Maybe the strength is that there isn't a leader, and that it's always chaos, and there's always going to be, somebody new. And I don't know that I still feel that way, Fitz. I don't think I feel that way anymore. I think there's got to be a leader, somebody that takes the mantle and runs with it. And so that somebody, because you've pointed this out several times, is that Oklahoma for so many years was that team in the Big 12. I said I wasn't going to bring up those names. Here I am bringing it up.
It's hard not to.
But they were the mantle. They were the brand. I know Texas fans, again, I said I wasn't going to bring them up. Texas fans want to argue with you, but they're lying. We all know they were lying. It was Oklahoma in football. They were the team. And that gave them a target that everybody could reach. It was like, okay, that's who we have to beat if we want supremacy in this conference. Well, now, who's that going to be? And last year, Fitz, I think there was a lot of people that thought, well, Utah's coming in. They got a good team, good coach, good program. Maybe they can come in year one and take the mantle, and fell right on its face. Now, there's some reasons for that, but I don't really care. They fell on their face. Those are the facts. Some thought Oklahoma State. You know what? They're right there. They were always good. Mike Gundy, great coach. Heck, I said last year he's the best coach in the conference. If Utah fell flat on their face, I don't even know what you can say about Oklahoma State. I mean, they got flattened like a pancake, I guess. So they weren't ready to take the mantle. Is the pressure too tough, Fitz, for some schools? What's going on there?
I don't know. I suspect we know who the best case scenario is. The program, excuse me, I'm dying of allergies. The program that is most likely to lead the way. Who has the most resources to become that program everyone chases? That's BYU.
Mm-hmm.
They got national following, national money. It's got a 5-star quarterback. They're showing that they can be that program.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Blue Cougars need to have a really good year this year.
Yeah.
To kind of keep that up. They can't go backwards. They got to sort out this quarterback mess and find a way to advance themselves on a season that, they probably should have gone further than they did. They kind of petered out at the end. But they're the ones most equipped. But it can be Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech is, got the money maybe to be that program.
Mm-hmm.
we'll see how it all pans out, but someone has to set a pace.
Yeah.
When you run a track or horses, if someone gets out there, everyone chases them. And that's exactly what the Big 12 needs. They need someone to chase so everyone knows we got to keep up with this team who's keeping up with everyone else's teams. That's step one, and that's a big step. And I hope this year we start to get a better focus. Maybe it's Arizona State.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason Arizona State can't be a national brand in football. There's none. How many of us say, yeah, I would go to school at Arizona State? I think most people have a positive attitude about Arizona State. It's a cool place. Looks like a cool vibe. It's a cool mascot, nice colors. So if they come back and win again, maybe Arizona State's going to be that team and they start recruiting and it really gets smoking, but it needs to happen here pretty soon.
Yeah, it's got to happen sooner than later. And like you mentioned before, I love the analogy of the pace car or runner or horse. Somebody's got to be the lead dog. Now, it's different when we talk about as far as the strength of the conference, because a lot of people think parity is how the conference is what makes the conference unique. And it gives the conference, kind of the cachet of, hey, it's parity, man. Anybody can win every single week. I think that's different than what we're talking about as far as a lead dog, though, Fitz. I think that's totally different things. I understand parity is good for this conference because we don't have 4 or 5 blue bloods in it or whatever the case may be. So having parity is good, but that still doesn't mean there was parity in the Big 12 when Oklahoma was in it. There was parity when Texas was in it. There was still tons of parity in the conference, but they still had a lead dog on everybody was trying to reach. And that's what the Big 12 has to get to. Now, here's the thing. It might take some time, Fitz. Even if Arizona State wins this year, is 2 years enough? I'll ask you, is 2 years enough to say, you know what? Okay, they're the lead dog. I got to believe. I think it's got to be more than that because Oklahoma didn't have it initially. Because when the Big 12 first started, OU was god-awful. I mean, if people can remember when it started, what was it, 1996? Yeah, when the Big 12 started, OU was not bad. They were terrible. And yet they built themselves into a power. Now, they made a great hire.
Yep.
And, that's how it works. So I think 2 years, I'm not sure that's long enough unless you win a national championship. Now, if you win a national championship, Fitz, I think all bets are off. And that's what helped OU, is that OU was bad, made a great hire. 2 years later, they won a national title. Everything changed. Can that be the case here? Or does it still have to take longer?
Well, I don't think Oklahoma needed that national title to assert itself that way because it has the blue blood.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're one of the most known programs. So as soon as they got good, they kind of became that team. I agree. If Arizona State wins a conference again, they will be on solid track to be that program, but we're not there yet. I think you really need to replicate this for 3-4 years. So it's going to be a work in progress. Having that kind of consistency through recruiting classes is going to be a challenge, but it's absolutely necessary. And here's why. Let me define it this way. Who in the Big 12 can your team beat that will make the national media go, ooh, that's a great win? There's no one in the conference. There's no, when you went to Oklahoma and won, that's what you got.
Yep.
That's a great win. And this is why the conference needs it the most is if you form one program that clearly stands out from everyone else for a couple years and then remains good and it looks like everyone's kind of caught up, then all of a sudden you have a measuring stick within your own conference. And the national media, in their simpleton ways, can say, ooh, Arizona State's won 3 straight titles and they just got beat at home. That's how these voters think. They need those obvious steps along the way to advance you in their minds. And you'll never catch a blue blood in their minds because that's when, they were little kids and all these opinions were formed. So, yeah, they Big 12 needs some more time, but I'm telling you what, they need a school, 2 or 3, that starts getting the attention of the national media at the level where it lends you access to steps up the college football ladder.
Yes.
Right now, the Big 12 doesn't have any steps. They don't have any steps that measured as big as Oklahoma or Texas. They're not even close. They need to start developing those steps upward.
Well, and one thing that they're also going to have to fight, you mentioned the national media. Well, Arizona State wins it 3 years in a row. And again, we're just using this as an example. It could be anybody wins it 3 years in a row. Well, then the conference isn't any good. They're a good team in a bad conference.
Right.
Well, okay. Well, hold on a second. Well, which is it? Either we're a good team or we're not a good team. Kansas kind of fought that in basketball for a long time, Fitz. It wasn't that people questioned that Kansas was a great program, but they won the Big 12. I don't even remember how many, was it 13 years in a row, something like crazy? And then people start, well, the Big 12 is not any good. And it's like, well, have you played any Big 12 teams? Have you been to the Big 12? No, the Big 12 actually is good. Kansas was just that good. And there was the difference. So football is going to take a little longer. Kansas is a blue blood in basketball, so that's different. So it's going to take a little longer in football, but you are right. It's, hey, they go win somewhere, and it's like, ooh, that's a really good win. Well, now, it's just not that. You don't have that yet. It can get there, but it's kind of the same thing that we talk about on ad nauseum of what the Big 12 has to do to get in, into the big boy tent is you got to go play some of these other conferences, big conferences, and go win. You got to win in the playoff. And I think that's what it's going to take to try to get on that. But as far as the branding goes, let's talk about some teams. Obviously, you mentioned BYU. We mentioned Arizona State. Who else? I know that we talked about Utah last year. They got to start winning. They got to win on the field. I know Utah fans are going to say, hey, it was just one bad year. I get it. But one bad year is enough to drop you down a couple of pegs, man. It just is. Oklahoma State, same thing. Like one bad, and it wasn't just bad. I mean, they played terrible.
Disaster.
Yeah, they were disasters. So it's not a bad year. We were 7-5. No, you were awful, and you played awful. So you got to build that back up. Who else is out there? I mean, you start looking at some of this is West Virginia a hidden gem that if they can put something together? Because if you just look at football and let's just look at football all-time resumes. West Virginia's at the top of that, Fitz. When you start looking at it, They are literally at the top of that. Can they put something together? Say Rich Rod gets this thing rolling. Can they be the brand of the Big 12?
Well, you've made that point by adding a little extra layer there. Hiring Rich Rod might elevate the view of West Virginia to these voters. Ooh, Rich Rod won. I vote them. I don't mean to be that condescending, but I swear to God, some of these national beat writers who are guys that clearly never played any sports, even rec probably, I think they vote on helmets. I like the new helmets. I'm going to put them in the 7. They're like little kids sometimes. It drives me nuts how simple they can be. But yeah, you're right. We often forget West Virginia has a pretty damn good football history because they haven't been that same school since joining the Big 12.
Correct.
It's been a while. So, yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's a number of schools who can do that. Colorado can do that, Big B.
Yeah.
I mean, they're already carrying the television ratings of a blue blood.
Yep.
I think, okay, I just came up with a plan. The best way for the Big 12 to succeed is clone Deion Sanders 15 more times. I'll put him at every school and everyone will watch every game. But yeah, I mean, Colorado's right there. Utah, Arizona State, all these schools that have come in the last few years. Yeah, I think they can lend some credence to this conference, but it's got to happen.
Yeah.
These teams got to be better. Well, every team in this conference needs to be better than it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
Utah and Oklahoma State hurt this conference a lot by what they did. Doesn't mean that Arizona State and BYU didn't fill those slots perfectly well, or Colorado.
Right.
But still, in the perception of the simpleton voter, Oklahoma State and Utah were supposed to be two of the best brands. And if they're bad, that means the whole conference is bad. Doesn't mean everyone else is better. It means the conference is bad. That's how they work this out in their head, where the SEC never loses. I mean, they're down, but it's because the whole conference is so good. And when you're down in the Big 12, the whole conference is so bad.
Yep.
Because now Oklahoma State's not even good enough. It's just this loop we get caught in. And you said it, that the best way to break that loop, that cycle of negativity that a lot of the national media holds, is go win the damn thing, which is exceedingly difficult. There's no doubt. You need to have some great recruiting, followed by some great fortune, followed by some great football.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty narrow window to get through for the Big 12, but it could potentially happen in the right world. The thing about having a playoff is, as we know this from the NCAA basketball tournament. Now, look, I understand upsets in football are going to be far less frequent. But, I mean, a good way to have access to that championship is a little chaos in the first or second round. And all of a sudden, instead of playing Ohio State, they just lost to, who am I going to pull out of the Ole Miss? Finally got in. They beat someone. Now you're playing Ole Miss instead of Ohio State. You know, you got to have a little luck in there. Because I'm going to be honest, it's almost impossible for the Big 12 to fully match up with the Texas, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, probably even Michigan, because of the physical level of athletes they're getting. Arizona State basically did it with Texas. They should have won that damn game.
Yeah.
Again, you gotta win, and you gotta have some fortune. And they fell just short in both of those on that game. Because I got to tell you this: if Arizona State beats Texas, the narrative changes tremendously heading into this season.
Yeah, absolutely. The narrative would be different altogether, not just for them, but for the entire conference. It would be different. And again, football is a game of inches. They get a bad call, great. But again, Arizona State, you had an opportunity with 4th and 13. You got to make a play. You make that play. You know, I can talk about bad calls all you want. You had an opportunity to win the football game, and you gave it away. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. Having said all of that, flip the script to basketball. Basketball, on the other hand, is a totally different deal altogether. Now, again, I know that football rules the day when we're talking about that. But with basketball has a brand, you know, in the Big 12. And it's a good brand, regardless of what ESPN is going to tell you. The Big 12 has a great brand of basketball. And it didn't even seem to mind that Kansas was average last year, Fitz. It didn't matter because Kansas, you know, for so long, as I mentioned before, you know, was the standard bearer for the conference. It didn't matter and hasn't mattered that Kansas is no longer the standard bearer in this conference. Nobody's looking at, oh, well, Kansas isn't any good. Well, the Big 12 must not be any good. That is not the case. Not at all. And Houston has come in and just basically said, yeah, we played in the American Conference, but you know what? First of all, the American Conference plays pretty good basketball. Second of all, it doesn't matter. We're a good basketball program. And period, end of story. And now they're starting to recruit like that. They've taken off and run with it. Arizona coming into the conference, you knew what they were bringing. Texas Tech is saying, hold on, we're just as good. We can compete too. Iowa State's got to have some tournament success. They can't keep falling, you know, on their face when the tournament comes around. But I don't think they have the problem in the Big 12. Look out for BYU, by the way. I don't want to disrespect them.
No.
Or Baylor. You know, Baylor, I think, is going to bounce back, you know. But the Big 12 doesn't have that same problem in basketball.
No, it's the reverse. Yeah. Yeah. When someone stumbles, it's like, wow, that Big 12 is really good. And it is. Yep. I get that. But the reason they say that isn't because, and I don't mean this as an insult to these schools at all. It isn't because of Iowa State or Texas Tech being good. It's because Arizona and Houston joined the conference.
Yep.
Those are good brands in basketball. They can understand that.
Yep.
Iowa State's getting there. They really are. And Tech has the ability to do that. Baylor's kind of in that upper brand, but not totally up there. So, yeah, they've got some names that the voters can recognize and understand the quality of basketball. And I think this conference can be the best basketball conference. And to kind of branch off into another topic slightly, I can almost, with this talk of Memphis, UNLV, and UConn, the Big 12 might be looking at them, which I find very strange, but let's look at this. If they truly believe the basketball portion of their contract can help close the gap a little bit, that there's no one of value right now to add in football that will advance you if you can't get ACC schools. It's just not. Boise, did they really advance you? I don't think so. So if you want to advance yourself, UNLV's got to, they haven't been great in basketball lately, but we all remember them. We all remember the Running Rebels. Well, except for the young people. You stinking young people and your good knees. I hate you all. And of course, UConn is UConn. It's about as big a brand as you get right now. And Memphis, well, Memphis has that same kind of, I don't mean this as an insult, I really don't, outlaw image that UNLV had. There's upstarts, kind of new brand. It's really good stuff for the Big 12. All of those are really good stuff for the basketball portion. But at most, it's 30% of your contract. Some say 10. Still, when you're shopping for a new contract and you want to talk to someone like a CBS that is deeply rooted in college basketball,
correct.
Having a really strong basketball conference and getting people in the habit of watching CBS for strong basketball game in, game out seems like a pretty good bet for CBS. We'll take your football too, and we'll pay full price for that. And we're going to bump a lot. So, because we want this product on our CBS platform and our sports network and anything else we have access to, whether those are the Turner stations. I don't know where all that's going now that it looks like MGM is going to sell off the whole Turner TNT stuff. So, yeah, you just need to get to work. And if expansion improves you, they might do it. I'm still cautious about all that, but I can see where they're kind of clicking around this because you're as brands, it's time to be honest. And it really is. You're never catching the SEC or Big Ten. Anyone who thinks that is delusional. You're not. There's no one in this conference that's going to catch an Ohio State or an Alabama. It's just not. But you can do that in basketball. Now, there's the old Big East theory. You spend so much time on basketball, you annihilate your football, and then you're dead. I don't see that. I think that lesson lingers for all of college athletics. And I think it's easy to do both. You can be really good in basketball, outstanding in basketball, and pretty damn good in football. Because, I think then the expectations for the conference get adjusted up.
Correct. Nope, I 100% agree. The thing about it for me is this expansion, I mean, we haven't had to talk about that very much this offseason, thank goodness. But I think it would be a colossal mistake if the Big 12 expanded before the new ACC contract was until that was over. It would be a because I tell you right now, I would take Louisville, Pitt, Virginia Tech, NC State. There's a Miami. There's a plethora of schools in the ACC that I would take before I took Memphis, UConn, and UNLV. And you're not going to have 40 teams in your conference. I just think it would be a collab. But I do get the point, and it's not your point, Fitz. It's the rumors that are out there as the Big 12 could possibly be doing it. I get it, but again, the ACC is going to fall apart. We all know it because as soon as they can get Clemson and Florida State are out the door, North Carolina will be right behind them. And so then there's your chance. So it just is what it is. But the bottom line is basketball, like you said, is totally different than football. I just think circling back to football here before we shut it down is I think there's a way that they can take the mantle, as you mentioned before, but it's just going to take some consistency. We talked about Oklahoma State and Utah hurting the conference last year, and it did. And again, we're not pointing the finger at those two schools, but it's like you mentioned, Fitz. Perception is reality. Conference, okay, but the two schools that we think are going to be good actually stink, and the schools that we think stink, they're actually good. Well, then the conference has to be bad. That wasn't the case at all. So now if Utah and Oklahoma State bounce back, okay, and then who's at the bottom of the conference? Well, if the floor or it gets raised up, that's where I think the Big 12 can do some damage, is that when the floor gets higher. The ceiling may literally be a ceiling that you can't break through. Okay. I think in basketball it can because it's already there. The ceiling just kind of goes to infinity in basketball for the Big 12. But in football, there's a ceiling. And if you can't get past it, you got to raise the floor. And I think that's what the conference has to really work on, Fitz, is just raising the floor. Now, I don't want to disrespect anybody and say who the floor is. I think people can figure that out on their own. But you got to be better, and I think there's a couple of teams and a couple of schools that we recognize that are the floor that are better. But there would be nothing worse than if the worst team, or nothing better, I should say, for the Big 12 than the worst team in the conference win 5 games. That would be phenomenal. Then you're like, well, hold on a second. I go, everybody can't be bad. I go, this conference can't be bad if the worst team wins 5 games. Now, you start doing some numbers here. You're like, well, what's the top of the conference doing? How many games are they winning there when you start doing those numbers? But it can work out depending on who plays who, But I think that's what we have to really focus on, Fitz, is raising the floor. And if you can do that, because that's what the Big 12, or not Big 12, the Big 10, and the SEC always pride themselves on. Everybody's good when we know that they're not. And then you start looking at the records and you're like, excuse me, tell me why this 3-win team, you're telling me that they're good. Well, if the Big 12 doesn't have any of those, and you still have three teams that win 10 games, you can't just, logic. Now, don't get me wrong. People are still going to say what they're going to say because they're stupid. But logically, you can't just say, well, this conference is bad when the worst team in it won 5 games and they got 3 teams that won 10. Where would the logic be that conference is bad? It can't happen, Fitz.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. Well, let me point this out. I think the Big 12 in football has accomplished one of those things that you just mentioned, which is raising the floor. Because for a long time, we know who the floor was in this conference in football. And Lance Leipold has changed that.
Yep.
Now Kansas is competitive. Kansas has a really good brand because of basketball. But we see it happening with Duke football. When Duke football gets good, the national media is like, ooh, Duke good. You know what I mean? They just kind of follow that. If there's a brand in there, even if it's the wrong sport, they still understand it. So I think Kansas is a valuable in football for that reason. What you can't have, though, is the same floor every year. If you're the Big 12 in its current state, you had that with Kansas before, but you had Oklahoma and Texas. Oh, they're good. So it's pretty simple for the voters to understand. But yeah, what you can't afford is to have Utah and Oklahoma State or Kansas State, Iowa State, or Tech, or I'm leaving people out, Arizona State, to be the floor.
No,
you can't have them collapsing now. You just can't. The floor needs to be, I'm sorry, Arizona. Nobody's like, oh, Arizona was good, but now they're bad. Okay. Same with Cincinnati. They were good. Now they're bad. Oh, well, those programs, if you pick out 4 programs that would be the floor, kind of rotate through and have 5-win seasons and beat each other on and off, I think the conference is fine. I do. Yeah. But you need that team up front.
Correct.
Because when you start raising the ceiling, I want to point out before I do this analogy, I'm not a construction scientist. So this is, from a science perspective, this sentence is total trash. When you raise the ceiling, the floor goes up with it.
Yes.
Not in real life, but in sports.
Yeah, I totally understand. It makes sense. Like you said, you can have the same floor of certain teams, but the floor can't be teams that are perceived to be good. We can't have Oklahoma State being bad. That's just not good for the con. You can't have Utah being bad. I can just say that you can't have Kansas State. You can't have BYU. You can't have those teams being bad every single year. You get a slip up because every program has a slip up. It's the way it works. But that they cannot be. For this conference, can't be. You could say the same thing about a Texas Tech with all the money that they have. A TCU 3 years ago being you just can't have certain programs in this conference being the floor in football. Just can't have it. You nailed it right on the head, Fitz. So I think we'll just end it right there. So appreciate you guys, man, for hanging around. Look, I get it. This is the dead period. Not a lot going on. So for those of you out there that have hung with us, We appreciate you. Hopefully we can get something in that the algorithm on YouTube hits and it gets out to more people, because it's not your fault. We can only do what we can do. But we appreciate you guys sticking with us. We know it'll be, once season starts, a lot more going on. But either way, we appreciate you guys. Thank you, and we will talk to you guys next week. Have a good one.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.